that is the very crux of the matter. That is what the ego is all about. What we call the ego, the superficial self, is control. Okay? It's, in fact, it wants control so badly that it lives in fear of losing control, and also lives in fear of being controlled. Don't you dare tell me what to do. How dare you? You see? Why? Because I want to be in control so much that we're always on guard, not only of fear of losing control, but of being controlled. And that creates all the problems of humanity, believe it or not. If you go to a mental home or talk with any psychiatrist, I've been doing hypnotherapy for many, many years, and the only thing that I find is this need to be in control. Why? Because we feel we don't have it. Because we feel we don't have control. We're afraid. We feel vulnerable. But what is love? To be vulnerable, to be open. So we're afraid of love, aren't we? Because it is love which is vulnerable, love which is openness, love which is innocent, love which is like this, you see? The ego is like this, contracted. Why do we easily lose control?
Because we never had it.
That's right. And because we're trying to possess it, own it, which destroys it at the same time. That's right. And we never had it. That's right. Because the one that's trying to have control is an idea on a very poor foundation. It is unreal. It has no stability, no foundation, no reality. It is based on a concept. Ego is a concept. You see? Just like right now I've asked, I said, who are you right now? And she said, I don't know. Beautiful answer. Because in reality, nobody knows. Because you're so vast. Because if you can say, I am awareness, but where does it start? Where does it end? Yeah. Hello. I hope that you have enjoyed this last video. Next we're going to discuss fear and love. And please remember that because we are love, we are always in need of love. This very need becomes fear of love. Fear of being rejected, fear of not being wanted, fear of not being paid attention to, fear of not being good enough, fear that there's something wrong with you. And it all comes. And so we want love. But why do you want it? Isn't it because it's already there? But of course we don't know this, that we are love itself. So our life becomes a mixture of decision making between love and fear. And did you know that 90% of the time we choose fear? Love is a win-win situation where there is harmony and there is everybody wins. And as far as fear is concerned, it's simply self-absorption. It is selfishness. So it doesn't really work. And since most of our decisions are based on fear, we burn ourselves out. Anyway, listen to the following video, and I hope that you'll derive a lot from it. Watch. Based on the survival instinct, we always choose fear. For example, you fall in love. Will it last? Will he love me? Will I lose it? Fear, rejection, uncertainty, insecurity is always there, always. You see, we cannot love without feeling fear coming with it immediately. And that's very natural in the beginning. Because as we're going to understand fear, we will see it's the catalyst for expansion when we listen to it. Because the first thing we do when we feel fear, immediately we resist it. We wish it wasn't there. I don't want it. I fear I'm going to die. I'm going to have this. This is going to happen to me. Or I've lost all my money. Or maybe he hasn't called. We had a date. Maybe he doesn't like me. Or maybe he doesn't want me anymore. Or whatever. There's always fear. Insecurity and lack of safety is part and parcel of being human. But what I'd like to emphasize today is that these are gifts that we can embody and use them for greater freedom and understanding. So when we talk about fear, we're talking about what protects you, to protect your love. You see, one thing that we really are, in truth, in the moment itself, when the mind is not caught in past and future, you are love. When your mind is empty, and recall moments when your mind was empty, you're totally present, you feel good. But the problem is, it's not a problem, but of course, we do not realize it at the moment, that when we're really happy at peace, we don't know it at the moment. You see? It is only later that you say, oh, there were moments when I was really at peace, when I was really happy. But at the moment that you're really at peace, you don't know it. Because there is no personal you to be aware of it. You're immersed in your love, whether the love of a child, the love of your painting, the love of your art, the love of the teaching that you do, the love of your partner, or the love of the moment. When there is that love, of course, there is the total immersion into now, which is called pure feeling. You see? So, so why is it that fear is so constant? And there isn't a moment that there is no fear. Some people come to see me and they say, well, I have this fear and I have that fear, I don't get along with my husband or with my son or with my daughter or whatever, or with my neighbor at my work, or there's this and there's that. And they think that they are alone, and they think it's personal, and they think that, okay, this is happening all the time, part of the human nature. And let's understand why. Okay? Why do we suffer? First of all, what is fear doing? What is fear doing when we feel fear? It is trying to protect you. That's all it's doing. Trying to protect you, to give you security and safety. But the paradox is that lack of safety and insecurity is fear itself. It's a vicious circle. But when we understand it, when we understand the feeling, something wonderful starts to happen. I'd like to ask you now, how does fear feel? Contracted? Small? Separate? Want to close up? That's right, you want to close off. You want to retire, you want to run away. Okay? Now, how does love feel?
Expansive.
Expansive. Full.
Giving.
Open. Giving. You see? It's the exact opposite. So life is a process of movement. Expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. But the paradox is that the expansion, contraction, the roller coaster, only happens on the human level. You are a human being. The being does not go up and down. The being is. That is something that the mind can't understand. But the moment itself is. Now, when you bring a feeling into that isness, fear and love become one. That is something very hard to understand. But if we can grasp that, that is what awakening is all about. Because then every problem and fear that we have, we can use it. We can use it for greater capacity to love. You know, when people keep telling me they suppress their fear, and they're always doing that. Oh, I have a problem, I don't get along with my husband, we fight often, and there's this fear, or I'm losing a lot of money, or this is happening, and that is happening, and there's this problem. And they make that problem so real that they're not dealing with it. They're not looking at what is happening inside them. Problems is a part of everyday life. You can never avoid problems, because that is the part of the human mind, you see. But when you start to avoid it, wish it was away, wish you didn't have this problem, this fear, the moment you do that, you begin to die. And I've seen this sad situation. People lose this ability to love because they've stifled fear. And when fear locks inside you, it becomes rigid inside you. Someone said, some master said, I'm not for sure, he said that's why we happen to have arthritis, because we become so rigid, our bones become, you know. So anyway, I'll just put that in. But that is not my experience, that I know that. I quoted it. Anyway, but the truth is that we become so rigid, so set in our stifling of our fear, they keep it inside, this resentment, that then we wonder why there isn't love in our hearts. We don't feel that warmth. We don't feel that connection. It begins to die. And then we find, even spiritually, we know a lot of knowledge, we went to church, we read books, we belong to some philosophy, but somehow we're not living this truth. Because the spirit inside us has died from avoiding and escaping fear. And we are emotional beings. Many years ago, I used to hate emotion. Give me an emotional woman and I'll run. You know, I couldn't stand tears or too hysterical. But eventually, I began to learn a great deal from my clients, from myself, from my wife, that emotions are not only present, but they're healthy. When you know how to deal with them, how to learn through them, you see? And the strength that you will derive from dealing with your fears, with your emotions, is tantamount to godliness. It's so amazing, because it brings out the compassion, the ability to feel and to know much deeper. Now, the key question is, how do we experience fear? Okay, this is the crucial point. Okay, so let's go back to what we said before. Fear feels like contraction. Fear feels small. You know, you want to escape, you want to run away. You don't like it the way it is. You see? So you contract. So now let's assume you're feeling some kind of fear. There's a contraction in you. What do you do? How do you experience it? Well, first of all, when we have a fear, we want to escape it, and a part of us is saying, I don't want this. I don't like it. You see? I want to run away from it. So, do the opposite. Take a deep breath and sit with it. We've said this many times before, but the key question now is to understand what that means. To listen to that. Now, how do you listen? I was with Sylvia today. We were having lunch, and she wanted me to go a little deeper into this, and because this is one thing I feel that most people fail to see, not only to apply it, but also because they do not understand the process. So I put my finger on her hand like this, and I said, now feel this. And of course she feels it. But the mind says, oh, there's pressure with the finger. No, put that away. Forget the finger, forget the pressure. You see? Forget Bert putting his finger there. Forget the hand receiving the pressure. Just feel it as it is. Are you understanding me? Just feel it. Now, if you feel it and you don't say pressure, you don't say finger, you don't say hand, just feel it as it is, you'll find that what you called pressure or pain before diminishes. It becomes just a feeling, neutral. I hope you have enjoyed this last video on between love and fear. Well, next we come to the climax, the final video. And as you know, there's only one way to deal with fear, and that is to face it. But facing fear is not unpleasant as most people think. Remove the word fear and feel it as a sensation in the body. Then get in touch with that sensation as simply as sensation. Put your hands over that sensation, the locality of the body, and relax, breathe into it and relax. And you'll find that as you begin to relax, you're actually healing the unconscious fear inside you. And here's the good news. To the extent that you heal the fear, you flower as the love you've always been. Okay? Enjoy the next one. So when we suppress fear, can we have some feedback here when you had a fear and you wished it wasn't there and you fought it? What were the results?
Kept happening.
Hmm?
It kept happening.
And kept increasing, isn't it?
Moves into anger sometimes.
Anger, right? Yeah.
It can be like a dead place. I've seen when I've tried to be away from it. Just a deadness, in a sense.
Yes.
Dullness and a deadness.
Deadness,
no
isn't it?
lightness, no joy,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I'll use the word deadness.
Yeah.
Because there's not much going on.
Yes, not much going on. You don't feel alive.
Yeah.
Now let's take it one more step. Did it ever happen to you that there is this deadness, there is this feeling inside, but there comes a moment, maybe sometime in your life, where you forgave whoever you were hating, or maybe yourself. And for a moment you gave up all resentment, all anger, all just for a moment. The feeling that came, the aliveness that came to you, yeah, even your health improved, your energy improved. The moment you said to yourself, you know, I'm willing to go through it. I'm willing to see it for what it is. A shift happens. Okay, now we're getting more directly here. The moment you meet fear and allow it to move. Now we can use words like forgiveness, we can use words like acceptance, we can use words like understanding, we can use these words, but let's do away with them. Let's talk about letting it move, letting it expand, give it space. Don't let it hold itself in, don't hold it inside you. Just listen to it and let it take room. It's okay, just the way it is. Don't call it fear. Don't call it something bad. And you'll find it takes on a different feeling.
So it's letting it be free to be what it is.
Letting it to be free to be what it is. And then you'll come back to the feeling that you actually are, called love. You were never fear. Fear was simply survival, because we thought we were just a human. We forgot we are also a being, you see?
Can I share something?
Oh, please.
Because it's on that, and it was something that
Mm-hmm.
I thought, because of the physical effects of fear.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a program, it was on, I think, Beyond Chance. And it was an interesting story about this woman who, I think the story didn't show that that was the reason behind it, but I got what it was. She was actually going blind.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever she didn't want to see was turning her blind.
Yeah.
And before she was totally blind, it was her birthday. And her family said, well, you want to see the world still. She wanted to experience as much as she could through her
Mhm.
eyesight that was left. And
Mhm.
I can't remember who in the family was a skydiver, and said, well, if you skydived, I mean, you feel so alive.
Right.
When you jump from that airplane, you'll see the world the way it is. You have to have that experience before you go
Mhm.
blind. And she said, well, if I'm going to go blind, I'm terrified of jumping. I don't know how I could possibly do that.
Mhm.
And he said, But go through it because
Mhm.
you want to have that memory. And that did it. She said, okay, I'll jump. And she went on the airplane and she jumped. And she went through the fear. And as she was going down, something happened. She heard a pop in her head. And as she was coming down, her eyesight was getting better and better and better. And by the time she hit the ground,
Mhm.
her eyesight had returned
Yeah.
completely. And I think what you're talking about is actually what had happened was everything that scared her actually was making her blind.
That's right.
When
It
she
was
went
blocking
through
her.
the fear, it was a blockage. And when she actually went through the fear of jumping, which was the worst thing, like you say, the fear of dying,
And she did it.
she did it. And that returned,
Yeah.
actually got rid of the blockage.
Yeah.
And her eyes.
That's right.
The energy
Yes.
started.
And this is what spirituality really is, taking a risk. People think if they pray enough, if they meditate enough, if they chant enough, fine. But that doesn't make you grow. What makes you expand is that risk, to take a risk. The thing you fear the most, plunge into it and experience it fully, without calling it fear. Go into it, and when you do, then there is that breakthrough, then there is that release. You see? So if any of you have any fears, thank God right now, because you have your catalyst right there.